Part 190. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1896. Gretel had never seen such brilliant Nevis. During his advanced meditation, he was lifted up by the will of the world and rose into the sky, overlooking Nevis. At that time, we could only see a few stars below, some bright and some dim, some bright like a bonfire, some dim forming a sea of stars. But this time, under the support of the world's will, he also saw a much more brilliant scene than before. Group after group of bright lights, like flames, like running water. Like the scorching sun, like the mountains. Uncertain, wavering. Those lights were right next to him, right under his feet. At a glance, it seemed to be a ball as big as a fist. If you look closely, it seems to be at least as big as the mouth of a bowl. Concentrate your energy and observe carefully, you will see that it is actually bigger than him, even bigger than his mage tower. Those that are hidden deep inside, those that contain extremely powerful power, those that when exploded, it felt like they could cover the entire city. Is he a legendary mage? Maybe it's true. Only legends have such strong power and unpredictable power. Sure enough, only if you are strong enough can you peek into the strength and nature of their power. Gretel sighed secretly. When he advanced to level 6 or level 7, he was not qualified to see this at all. The will of the world wrapped around him, and he passed directly at a glance. And now, he can see 7, 8, a dozen? The intensity of the light group frightened him. Looking further out, there are dots of stars, not as strong as the legend, but definitely not negligible, lighting up the entire Nevis night sky. And the points of light that were dimmer than them, but much more numerous than them, merged into a sea of light under him. High-level mage, mid-level mage, low-level mage. Extraordinary people, ordinary people. All these beings, their spirituality merges into a sea of light, which is projected into the spiritual ocean of this world, causing surging waves. In Gretel's eyes, the spiritual sea in Nevis is particularly active, surging, and full of vitality. They rolled and roared, pushing Gretel's mind to fly upward. Does I have a contribution to this? Do I have a contribution in making generators, making penicillin, establishing a public health system, and promoting caesarean sections? Greet thought with some emotion. With such joyful thoughts, he quickly rose up, wherever he looked, from the entire Nevis, to the entire kingdom of Kent, and then further, further and further. The light on the left-hand side is bright and sparse, and the distance between each light spot is very far. Is it Dragon Island? The light spots on the right are not so bright, but more numerous and dense. In terms of total amount, they are much denser than Nevis and the Kingdom of Kent. So, are those countries in the Old World, the Netherlands, the Kingdom of Capet, the Kingdom of Brolin, and the Kingdom of the Rhine? There are also countries further and further away. Gretel even wanted to take a look outside the world barrier, to see where the teachers, senior sisters, and dragons were fighting with all their strength, and to see what those foreign invaders looked like. However, this time, the will of the world did not provide him with such a high-level perspective. On the contrary, it hovered a little, giving Gretel an idea of the entire world, and then pressed him down. Advanced. Advanced. Little guy, your first priority now is to advance quickly. Gretel. No, so stingy. Not even a glance. Before, I was close to the Sky Dragon City, close to the world barrier, and it was easy to lift up, so I showed it to you. Now that I am far away, it is too laborious to lift it up, so I won't show it to you. Gretel complained slightly, and could only concentrate on absorbing the energy poured down by the will of the world. This is the last chance. All my chromosomes must be dyed golden with the gifts of the world and strengthened to the transition state. This is the last chance. If we don't get it this time, will we still have to wait until we advance to legend? Greet closed his eyes slightly, projected his meditation core into the meditation world, and extracted the huge chromosome structure from the center of the meditation core. Then, little by little, use the gifts of the world to paint every spot golden. Use this huge energy to put it in a state where the magic energy is about to overflow. This state is the state where chromosome energy is stacked to its strongest level. And only chromosomes in this state, when based on this and reflecting the physical body, can strengthen the physical body to the limit. Gretel meditated with all his strength. Not far away from him, in the Tower of Babel, Archmage Beelz's eyes lit up. Today's train of thought is so smooth, I feel that if I follow this train of thought, I will soon be able to grasp the key points of this spell created by Gretel. Dark blue song Ms. Helena narrowed her eyes slightly. She stretched out her right hand, and the fingertips of her crystal clear fingers suddenly moved inward, gathering a ball of colorful light. The conjuration legend stared at the light in front of him. In a sudden flash, the skirt lifted up and disappeared. When it reappeared, it was gone. Appearing in the control core of Igor's mystery lock, the deepest area. Mr. Herman Cruz. The last time we called up, there was a legend that advanced within the range of the me lock. The type and intensity of the external energy that the me lock accepts, well, it's not that vampire, it's the legendary mage from the council. The tower spirit of Babel is operating at full strength. For a moment, pieces of light and shadow stood up in front of Helena, making her look colorful. Helena only glanced at it twice before continuing to order. Compare it with the energy received by the current mystery lock, and mark the similarities and differences. In addition, call up the adjustment plan for the mystery lock at that time. As she expected, since the turbulent scene when little Gretel advanced could be compared with legend, then the intensity, nature, and type of energy received by Misuo must be comparable to legend. The infusion of the world's will cannot be intercepted by the mystery lock, nor can it be intercepted by any existing methods. But when the world's will is stirred up, the Tower of Babel can get a share of the other energies that surge in, right? Even if only a few rare particles are trapped, stored internally, and analyzed. It is said that when Gretel advanced the last time, the world barrier was shattered, and a large amount of alien energy was rolled down from outside this world. Those dragons and their mythical locks have received a lot of benefits. As long as the Tower of Babel can store some of these things. Magician Advanced Legend, it helps a lot to have something out of this world for reference. For this reason, many magicians will find ways to travel to other worlds, or even stay there for a long time. Gretel is now in the process of advancing. The Tower of Babel mystery lock is on guard for him, and he can get some peripheral energy by the way. Isn't that too much? Mr. Herman Cruz, are the calculations completed? It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1897. If the will of this world condensed a consciousness as agile as a living person, then it would probably have begun to rejoice at this time. Another person advanced. Another high-level powerhouse advanced. Every time a high-level strong person advances, the spirituality of this world will be enhanced by 1 point. As the spirituality of the world increases, the world will become larger and more attractive to the outside world. You can attract more things to enhance the world. Of course, world consciousness does not yet have such clear thinking. But even so, out of instinct, it began to try to give gifts to this advanced person based on his contribution to the world. Mix in some random stuff by the way. The size of the world has increased, and things sucked in from the outside should also be stuffed into him. Anyway, if they can carry these big guys and stuff them in, give it to them. Gretel was just stuffed with a lot of gifts from the world and a lot of messy things. He sat peacefully in the meditation room, with his mental power open and accepting everyone who came. There are only 2 chromosomes to be blurred, so the task is not too heavy and they are blended very quickly. Among the chromosomes, there are some specific points that have been analyzed by the senior sister to find the corresponding spell models, or individual fragments of the spell models. These models and fragments naturally require extra processing and construction, but fortunately the workload is not particularly large. After all these are pasted, it's time to reach the chromosomes of the dragon clan. The chromosomes of the silver dragon. Although the transformation technique Gretel is currently using cannot transform at the genetic level, who knows, who cares? First, use the vast gifts of the world to build up the chromosomes of the silver dragon. If you can dye it into gold, you can dye it into gold as much as possible. Compared with human chromosomes, dragon chromosomes have great potential. Gretel tried his best to embody the chromosomes of the silver dragon in the meditation world, and used the will of the world to build them. Ah, it's so difficult. In terms of quantity and the length of each chromosome, it is several times that of a human being. It feels like even if he advances to level 19, his mental capacity is not enough to build all the chromosomes. Then pick the most important part, the part of the Y chromosome, and paint them with golden light, and then simply materialize the other parts. We can't accidentally create a replica of Cyrilla like last time. Fortunately, I have corrected it. Fortunately, I have not stopped working hard during this period. I have always let Taling and Ashu help me calculate, and I check and adjust myself from time to time. Otherwise, if you don't have the final draft at hand when it's time to use it, and you have to figure it out as you go, it's really easy to cause problems. When you have a task and a purpose, time flies by. Gretel sat in the meditation room with her eyes closed, using her spiritual power to guide the world's gifts, adding to her chromosomes bit by bit, unaware of the passage of time. On the top of the mage tower, Cyrilla rolled around in the dragon's nest, sniffed, and rolled again. It's a familiar smell, Gretel, did he start it again? Last time he advanced, Gretel turned into a silver dragon, although it felt a little weird. The last time he advanced, he also smelled like a silver dragon. So, is it the same this time? Are you getting closer to the dragon clan and turning into a real silver dragon? Then, will our children be completely dragons instead of half human and half dragon? Oops, speaking of which, what does a half human, half dragon child look like? How was a half human, half dragon child born? Sarah covered her head with her wings and suddenly rolled several times, and her silver scales seemed to show a little red. Bah, what are you thinking about? Now I have to work hard to become a legend, a legend. We agreed that when we all reach legend, we will get married and have children. Gretel will be level 19 soon. I am still a long way from becoming legend. Sarah tried her best to smell the cool and comfortable smell again, lay down on the floor, and closed her eyes. In the aura around her, there were many rare powers she had never seen before. She must try to understand them, remember them, and not let go of them at all. There isn't much time left for her. It has been 2 full days since Greet started to advance. According to past experience, he will be able to enter the stage of a magician in a day or 2 at most. By that time, Gretel's understanding of the world, especially the new understanding gained during this period, will emerge one by one. When the time comes, it will be too late to open her eyes wide and use her brain to remember. There will be no time for her to realize these strange powers. You must work harder, you must work harder. Mr. Herman Cruz, the mythical locks continue to be adjusted. In the Tower of Babel, Ms. Helena was also urging the tower spirit to work harder to analyze, record, and absorb various external forces. The 15th floor, 33-87-46, lower the negative energy by 2 spaces. Level 38, direction 125-41-96, increase the space energy by 3 spaces. Floor 43. Mrs. Ender of the prophecy department stood beside her, with her calculation power at full capacity, constantly guiding her in the direction. The legendary Steiner of the protection department stood behind her, concentrating on checking for leaks and filling them, making sure not to let any loopholes appear in the magic circle. Getting some good things is an unexpected blessing, but taking risks for these extra gains is a penny wise and pound foolish. It seems like the harvest is pretty good now, I just don't know how long it can last. Helena looked at the data written down like a waterfall on the light screen in front of her, and her eyes widened. Behind him, Steiner replied flatly. Promoting to level 19 usually lasts 3 to 5 days. 3 days have passed now, so there is less than half of the time left, huh? The three legendary mages set their sights down the mountain at the same time. Time and space barrier. Steiner even teleported, leaving the core of the mage tower and standing directly on the top of the tower. He can't wait. He didn't want to wait for the tower spirit to scan, analyze, and then use a light screen to present all the changes below. He wants to see with his own eyes, feel with his own mental power, and capture those fluctuations immediately. Standing in mid-air, the great barrier of time and space, Your Excellency, was momentarily speechless. Little Greet, what are you doing? What are you fussing over? What is it that permeates the top of your mage tower, covers the entire mage tower, and even covers a large area of the surrounding fog, rolling back and forth? Golden-backed crazy ape. Armored rhinoceros. 7-star golden eel. Blue-horned sheep. Golden feather eagle. There are also golden dragons, silver dragons, red dragons, black dragons, all kinds of dragons. Those that fly in the sky, those that run underground, those that swim in the water. The bodies of various magical beasts gradually condensed from the thin white mist, and gradually became more real. What's even more unusual is that these high-level monsters are roaring and charging, and the power exuded from them has already made the magicians below start to retreat in formation. What is Little Greet doing? Warcraft Siege the City. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1898. Time barrier. Mr. Steiner was too far away, and he didn't observe carefully, so he only saw those big monsters. In fact, in the mist around the mage tower, there are many various things that are rising and falling, and are constantly becoming more substantial. All kinds of bacteria, fungi, chlamydia, mycoplasma, viruses are all over the sky. Fortunately, these things are not real, otherwise they would be sucked into people's bodies and infect humans and animals, and a major epidemic would break out in Nevis in an instant. Moss is spread out, strange mushrooms open their umbrellas, and all kinds of wild flowers and grasses are in full bloom. As for the trees, there aren't any giant trees towering into the sky, and there are no trees like trees. In front of the mage tower, an oak tree rises from the ground. The roots of the tree are deeply rooted in the soil, and the stretched crown is even higher than the white mist. Among the dense leaves, crystal clear fruits are flowing with brilliance. Many fruits have various magical runes shining faintly, and some fruits contain flowers, birds, fish, and insects of various sizes, specific and subtle. How big your heart is, how big your dream is. Gretel used Ashu as a universal storage device, wishing that all the chromosomes he had tested could be stored in it. Ashu wished that all the fragments could be stored in the fruit. One day, even if he falls into another world, with his reserves of the sacred oak tree, he will be able to reproduce the creatures of the entire world. This tree really grows. At this moment, Lord Steiner, who was overlooking the mage tower from a high position, just admired like this. As for whether this tree has grown a little too tall, Has it grown beyond the height of a normal oak tree? Who cares? Gretel seems to be half a natural priest. The staff of the natural priest is normal no matter how long it is. This tree is growing really well. Elder Tapros, who has been here for 2 days on behalf of the Natural God Church, is watching from a distance and does not feel anything is wrong at all. The natural priest's oak staff is the natural priest's means of communicating with nature. Little Gretel is about to become a legend. His oak staff supports a small world inside the canopy, which is normal. If little Gretel really goes one step further and can become a legend, and his meditation world turns virtual into reality, then this oak tree will be the world tree in that world. It's great that it can grow so big now and can communicate with so many animals and plants. It's great. Only Balba felt it was not good at all. He retreated step by step, exited the range of the white mist, and retreated to a position side by side with Elder Tapros. Looking up at the tree crown and comparing the height of the oak tree, I feel bad. There is a well of eternity under the Mage Tower. Although the well of eternity is under the 3-story basement of this Mage Tower, a 3-story basement is not that deep. At most, 15 meters is a big deal. Counting the protection on top of the well of eternity, 25 meters. 35 meters. That's less than half the height of an oak tree. Elder, let me ask you a question. How deep can the roots of this oak tree go down? Can it be as deep as the crown of the tree? It has to be at least that deep, right? Elder Tapros didn't even think about it. The roots are deep and the tree is big. The tree is big and the roots are deep. If the roots of the tree do not spread out and penetrate deeply, how can the crown of the tree grow? Then, how strong are the roots of the tree? Burbo's heart was beating fast. When he rebuilt the Mage Tower, he had already made the entire foundation, with a radius of 200 meters and a depth of 100 meters, into extremely hard stone using high-grade clay turnstone, but the power of tree roots to penetrate the ground is very strong. There is soil and soil, there are stones and diamond heads, and it is normal for a tree growing on the top of a mountain to have its roots reach the bottom of the cliff. He quickly threw a spell that measured radioactive leakage. Thank God, the police haven't been called yet. At least this thing didn't leak out of the white mist. As for the inside of the white mist, the fog is too thick and the energy disturbance is too severe, making it impossible to observe it at all. Can they get into the cracks in the wall of the Mage Tower? That depends on whether the Magistrate's Tower is strong enough. Elder Tapros had a serious look on his face. Hundreds of years ago, priests and magicians of the Nature Order were at loggerheads, and they summoned giant trees to entangle the Magician's Tower. What kind of tree trunk is curled up, tightly wrapping the Mage Tower, squeezing inward with all its strength? What kind of tree roots are entwined, tightening the Mage Tower, digging into any cracks, and blocking the Mage Tower? These are all basic operations. Not surprising. Of course, if the level of the Mage Tower is high enough, the defense is strong enough, and the building is strong enough, the roots of the tree will not be able to get through, but, if the natural priest who casts the spell is of high enough level, and the tree is well maintained. That's too bad. Baebo jumped up and rushed into the white mist. Yes, when he built the Well of Eternity, he strengthened its defenses in all directions. It is conservatively estimated that a full-strength attack from the legendary second level would definitely not be able to break it. However, that is the result of adding up the magic defense. The defense of the material itself is really not that high. Besides, who knows what might happen to little Greet's portable oak tree? Who knows if this oak tree will absorb all the magic power and then crawl into the cracks of the bricks? Nothing can go wrong with the Well of Eternity. He took a step forward and stopped urgently. Turning his head, he looked at Elder Tapros. Elder, can you communicate with that tree? Can you talk to it? Don't pierce the roots randomly. Don't pierce the Mage Tower. If you get into the Well of Eternity, it will be over. What will happen? The worst case scenario is probably, the big explosion in the elf forest. The elder's expression changed. While communicating with the Steiner legend above, he was already running desperately towards the mage tower, running so fast that he almost left an afterimage. Although the oak staff is also intelligent and should not cause trouble under normal circumstances, but who knows? Now that his master is advancing, what if he falls into meditation like his master and loses everything except instinct? Although it is said that when Bilbo built the Well of Eternity, he should have put in full defense, but seeing the guy jumping around in a hurry, Elder Tapros was no longer calm. Ashu! Ashu! Can you hear me? Can you hear my voice? The elder shouted as he ran inside. He rushed into the white mist, looked around, then quickly pounced down and started digging the ground with his bare hands. Brushing, brushing, brushing. Dust flew up all over the ground, and for a moment, the elder hugged a white tree root with both hands, and his spiritual power spread along the root. Ashu, be careful. Don't poke your tree roots under the mage tower. That's the Well of Eternity. Be careful if you poke it. Let's go to the sky together. Wave after wave of legendary level mental power rushed over. It took a long time before a small, aggrieved and impatient thought came through. What am I? I'm not a fool. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1899. The two legends and Siang Oak staff were causing mischief outside, and Gretel had no idea at all. At this moment, he has reached the most critical moment of advancement. Practice one breath internally and muscles, bones and skin externally. Ah no, practice the world of meditation internally, make the world of meditation as rich as possible, as substantial as possible, and as close to this world as possible. Train your body externally, absorb enough energy, and use the chromosomes of the core structure of meditation as the basis to trigger resonance with the physical body, refine the physical body, and make the physical body further stronger. Among them, the richness of the meditation world is based on his understanding of the world, especially his understanding of the nature of the world. It is like the small world of the Lord of Thunder, which favors all kinds of thunder and lightning, and various forms of thunder and lightning. Although Greet has never seen Brother Bilbo's small world, it is probably so explosive that he can't get in. And Gretel's small world is what it looks like now in the white mist. The outermost layer contains various bacteria, fungi, and viruses, various flowers, birds, fish and insects, various magical plants and magical beasts. The middle layer is a bunch of various chromosomes. The inner layer contains various cells, tissues, organs, and structures. They are floating high and low, rising and shrinking, and there is power flowing inside, and they are performing their respective duties. When people who don't know better step in, they think they're in a medical school's showroom, filled with various organs soaked in formalin. By the way, the organs in the showroom are dead, but the organs here look alive. The so-called medical students are ecstatic. And standing at the core of the meditation world are various spell models. The bottom layer is zero rings detection magic, with an X-ray photo floating next to it. One level up, there is a ring of burning hands with a test tube floating next to it. In the test tube, large and small, sinking and floating, they are all symbols of oxygen. One more level. All these magic models, together with a unique understanding of the world, form a solid pillar. Parading around the tower were the spells that Gretel had learned over the years but had not modified. They swallow power, breathe power, and resonate with power. Every structure and every rune exudes a bright light. With the pillar as the center, a radiant tower is built. Complementing the spell is Gretel's own body. This time, while attracting the world's gifts and refining his body, Gretel also has one more task. Isn't this a new spell? This spell can regenerate the organs, regenerate every detail of the body, and make those places that have undergone irreversible changes regain their youth and become more perfect. Just in time, take this opportunity and hurry up. For example, in the eyes, the ciliary muscles that have been tense for a long time and cannot relax should just take this opportunity to adjust. It would be nice to be able to adjust the lens and other things, by the way. Speaking of cataracts and floaters, they are all lesions caused by the aging of the lens. Thinking about it this way, there are many things that need to be adjusted, and you need to be patient and careful enough. Greet sat in the meditation room, adjusting from head to toe, from spine to organs, bit by bit. That is to say, he knows both GG and CG by heart. He has done a lot of dissections over the years and has a good understanding of the physiological structure of the human body. Although it takes enough time to do these things, it can be considered a familiar task. Don't be confused all the time and don't know where to start. Ah, why is it so slow? At the top of the Tower of Babel, the legendary mages were discussing in low voices. Gretel's advancement this time took a particularly long time, far exceeding the time required for a normal level 18 mage to advance to level 19. The most important thing is that his mage tower is only a mountain away from the small station at the foot of Igor Peak. Now the clouds and mist around the mage tower are expanding, with a diameter of 1 to 200 meters, and it has already covered half of the station. Those magicians who have to commute to get off work every day, and those who rely on small trains to transport supplies every day, have all been disrupted. He first advanced to a level 19 natural priest, and then advanced to a level 19 magician. Fortunately, the council also had records of Greet's situation, and the information was quickly unlocked. As for the issue of going up and down Igor Peak, I can only say that I ask my colleagues in the Alchemy Guild to persist a little longer and strengthen the temporary track so that this thing can be used for a few more days. After level 17, the process of a magician climbing up step by step is the process of the body gradually becoming elemental. Only when the elementalization reaches a certain proportion can the transition of life forms be realized. This process should rather be slow than fast. It requires patience, polishing and careful carving. From this point of view, it is a good thing that Gretel's advancement took a long time. I just don't know which energy the process of converting little Gretel's energy into is. This kind of secret privacy belongs to every magician, and it is not easy to ask casually. From daily interactions, I don't quite feel it. As for Greet's research direction, his research direction is not biased towards any kind of energy. I can only feel it intuitively when he advances to legend. Speaking of which, up to now, I haven't felt which direction the energy fluctuations around the mage tower are biased. The mighty energy tornado fell from the sky, and it has not ended yet. In the eye of the tornado, Gretel tried his best to absorb energy and build his meditation core. Well, the spell engraved this time is undoubtedly the newly invented organ regeneration technique. What is different from the past is that this time the spell is not only engraved in the core of meditation, but also engraved on my body. Greet recalled the key points of the solidification spell 1, 2, 3, and 4, and carefully connected this new spell to his body. The key points are simple. First, you have to learn this spell. Secondly, you need to rub it to the point where it can be cast instantly. Again, you have to establish the direction and triggering conditions of this spell on yourself. Ensure that it can be triggered anytime and anywhere when conditions are met. Finally, connect the energy supply system to the spell to ensure that it has sufficient energy supply when it needs to be triggered. Gretel doesn't have to worry about this. His meditation core has been completely painted golden, and his energy is slightly overflowing, always in a transition state. If it is stimulated here, it will be provided there. As for Gretel, there are some small changes in the way the spell is solidified. Ensure your normal metabolism, lock in the most normal and stable state, and avoid degenerative changes. In this way, I will always be young, and this body will never age. Yeah. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1900. The meditative world absorbs enough power and reaches the final step before forming a demi-plane on the road to materialization. The body also absorbs enough power, and even if it can't finish it, it will be sent into the silver dragon mode all at once. Remind yourself that the next time you advance, you must be in a dragon's nest, or a sufficiently open place. Finally, as a sign of advancing to level 19, the advanced inscription spell has become stable in the world of meditation. Connect the physical body, continuously adjust the physical condition, and keep the body young forever. At this point, Greet, who slowly walked out of the meditation room, has become a level 19 nature priest and a level 19 great magician. In terms of status and achievements, he is just below the legend. Moreover, no one thinks he can't become a legend. Good boy. The clouds and fog cleared outside the mage tower. Senior brother Baebo, who rushed back immediately, looked around and slapped him on the shoulder. The speed of advancement is really fast. How many years have I been a legend? You are about to catch up right now. How long has it been since he became a legend on Elf Island? That time. Little Gretel is still a well-behaved little guy. He has not even reached level 15, but in a blink of an eye he is already level 19. It would be nice if the council had more magicians who advance so quickly. It's a pity that there is only one like this. Forget it, he has brought out several of them, people can't be too greedy. As Baebo thought this, he heard steady footsteps beside him, and Elder Tapros followed him forward. The elder first looked up and down, observing the green branches and green leaves, the energetic oak tree, and even touched it with his hands. Then he turned to Gretel, his white beard twitching and his brows dancing with joy. Okay, 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 when he spoke, the green leaves on the top of the staff were flying, and he just wanted to stretch out the branches and rub against the oak tree. This is a very steady step. Our nature order will soon have another legend. Little Gretel, take these things dash. 3 rolls of tree bark, a piece of tree heart, and an unknown animal skin were thrust into Gretel's hands without any explanation. These are the experiences of the elders of the sect in advancing to legend. There are both successful and failed ones. Take a good look at it and don't be in a hurry to return it. When you understand it, remember it. Baebo, rightward arrow. Rightward arrow. Little Greet belongs to our family. It's from our magic council. You see, he advanced in the magic council, and the research resources he took were also the resources of the council. Who told you that he was a member of the nature order? Forget it, there's no point in fighting over this. With a smile on his face, Baebo maintained enough grace and even saluted the legendary Helena who flew down from the sky. Gretel also saluted. The petite, doll-like female legend flew to the ground, looked at Gretel up and down, and her tone was very satisfied. Yes, yes, this is the threshold of legend. Starting from today, the relevant information about advanced legends in Babel Tower is open to you, you can check it at any time. By the way, your legendary title can also be I thought of it in advance. In fact, it's usually not that fast. From a half-step legend to a legend, usually, a conservative estimate would take 10 years. Like the previously advanced legend of Langer, it has been stuck for more than 10 years, and like Prince Reamer, it has been stuck for hundreds of years. Of course, vampires and humans have different lifespans and different situations. However, if the advancement is particularly smooth, like the 2 disciples of the Lord of Thunder, they progressed bravely and became legendary in just a few years. From this point of view, Gretel may advance to the next level in 1, 2, or 3 to 5 years, and his title, we can indeed start to think about it. What's there to think about? Isn't it the Lord of Plagues? A dry and hoarse voice suddenly broke in. The shriveled skull dragged a circle of black robes, flew around Gretel, and flew around again. "Oh, such a great legend is not from our Black Crow swamp. I didn't expect you to reach this point so quickly." Gretel. "I am not the Plague Lord. I don't want the name Lord of Plagues. It sounds awful." He hasn't exploded yet, but the senior brother next to him has already exploded. Baebo took a step forward and stood in front of his junior brother. The flames on his body lit up. "What is the name of the Lord of Plague?" "Little Gretel is from our Thunder Horn." "He is from the Thunder Horn. To say the least, he is also a magician in the direction of healing. There are so many titles that healers can use, why use Plague Lord?" Yes, Elder Tapros also had objections to the title Lord of the Plague, but it was difficult to quarrel directly with the immortal. At this moment, Sun Crown was the first to fire, and he helped with a smile. "Little Gretel has made so many contributions in the field of healing. Any signature spell can be used as a title. For example, Human Body Clairvoyant, Life Listener. The former corresponds to the various imaging spells he invented, and the latter corresponds to the life monitoring suit he invented. They are all very good. By the way, the Dragon Clan seems to have started secretly calling him Lord of Reproduction. From the perspective of the Dragon Clan and Little Greet's contribution to the Dragon Clan, this term is not unreasonable." "What's so good about these titles, His Excellency?" the immortal snorted vigorously. "It's hard to believe that he, a skull, can actually hum out air from the black hole that used to be his nose. It doesn't have much fighting power when you hear it, and it won't scare the enemy at all. Unlike the Plague Lord, who wouldn't shudder when they hear it. What's the benefit of letting others be afraid of him?" Elder Tapros raised a white eyebrow high. "He is a healer, not a fighter. He just needs to be admired and loved by others. Titles are also powerful and will gather thoughts for him. They are all healers. Even if you want to be a little majestic, wouldn't it be better to call him Lord of Life? Or call it Life Control? Got it, it's the power of faith, right?" Greet's head turned around, turning around, listening to the quarrels of the elders, and he couldn't get a word in at all. It wasn't until this moment that he understood something. As a matter of fact, he died without any disease. And being respected and loved by millions of people will naturally have additional benefits. Characters under the legend may not be able to use the power of faith, but those who reach the legend, even those who are not priests, can retain these powers for their own use. Only this, Lord of Life or Controller of Life, this title seems too big. I can't bear it. If you can't bear it, work hard. Most of your illnesses can be cured now, right? You're only one step away from being brought back to life, and you'll be able to fully control your life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1901. Actually I don't want to do the resurrection spell. Gretel's voice became smaller and smaller under the glares of the surrounding elders. However, even though he is getting smaller and smaller, it does not prevent him from straightening his back. Resurrection or something like that was not the direction of his efforts in the first place. There is resurrection in this world, but the requirements are very demanding and the price is extremely high. You need to pray for divine grace and permission, and the price is almost one life for another. The high-level magician who can release the resurrection spell has extremely terrifying loss of lifespan or loss of life essence. Even if you save a civilian with no level, a high-level magician will lose most of your life. Saving a high-ranking or relatively important person, such as a princess or a prince, would be even more extraordinary. Basically, one life is exchanged for another. Sometimes if you are unlucky, one life is exchanged for another, and even one life is not enough. Gretel doesn't want to study this kind of thing. After struggling for a long time, working hard for a long time, and finally risking your own life. He's not stupid. Then what do you want to study? Several voices asked at the same time. Gretel pursed his lips, shook his head, and said nothing. This kind of problem must be thought about carefully. He will never say anything until he understands it. If you don't want to say it, don't say it at the critical moment. It was his senior brother who loved him the most. Legend Baebo ruffled his hair vigorously. Hurry up and write the paper. With a paper, those people don't have to drill their heads to find out what else you have researched. At that time, they are going to get into trouble and queue up for treatment at my place. Right, okay, I'll write. Gretel received another blow on the forehead, and immediately raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. I'll write it now. Work harder. If you go faster, you can still catch up with this issue of life. Isn't it in my hands when life will be published? Gretel's voice became softer and softer, and finally, he saluted the big guys present and returned to the Mage Tower in a hurry. 3 days later, the latest copy of Life was placed on the desks of many big bosses. This spell can treat degenerative diseases of almost all organs, except the brain. Of course, to achieve this effect, the healer needs to be very familiar with the structure of human organs. The old legend of the royal family, Thundering Sword Master Count Melio stared at the paper in front of him, read it again, and then began to read the appendices at the back carefully. Of all degenerative diseases, the first one listed is diabetes. A group of metabolic diseases characterized by a chronic increase in blood sugar levels, characterized by 3 more and 1 less, namely polydipsia, polyuria, polyphagia and weight loss, as well as high blood sugar and glucose in the urine. Count Melio buried his head in thought. There are indeed such people among his relatives and friends. I eat a lot and drink a lot, but I am always hungry and my body is thin. I don't know whether my blood sugar is high or not, but I have indeed heard that after peeing on the ground, ants will crawl on the urine marks. The long course of the disease can cause multi-system damage, leading to blurred vision, chronic disease of kidneys, cardiovascular, nerves and other organs. Wounds are easily infected and difficult to heal, especially if they do not receive treatment and heal in time. Count Melio was slightly startled. He had seen situations like this before. There was once an old friend who was being chased and tried his best to escape. He survived, but the old man was buried in the jungle because of ulcerated wounds. So, is this the cause of the disease? He thought he was too seriously injured and that his companion was too weak. When the condition is particularly severe, ketoacidosis may occur, and the patient's breath can smell like rotten apples. This situation is very dangerous, and the patient has a high chance of dying. Rotten apple taste. Count Melio was shocked. Yes, he has also smelled this smell, more than one. Those people died soon. Even the highest level of healing techniques can't save them. In this case, treatment aimed at accelerating metabolism is difficult to achieve a therapeutic effect and may even worsen the condition. At this time, detoxification should be used first to remove ketone bodies in the patient's body, but this method is also a temporary treatment, not treating the root cause. Those healers, those priests, they don't even know how to use antidote. Thunder Sword Master thought angrily. No, wait, what are ketones again? To ensure a radical cure, we still need to use the organ regeneration technique described in this article to regenerate the pancreas and restore its function. It seemed that some old guys in the royal family, as well as some old guys he knew, should be sent for treatment. Thunder Sword Master thought this way, and suddenly let out a long sigh. Originally, the royal family and nobles basically relied on the spring water temple for treatment, and some would consult the god of war temple and the nature order. Relying on these 3 major sects, it basically maintains a balance of power with the magic council. But now, what if This disease must be treated by the Magic Council, and that disease must be treated by the Magic Council. Before long, there may be problems with the balance of power in the kingdom. I hope that the Nordmark Archmage will be willing to teach a few more students, regardless of their background. Otherwise, the pressure on the little queen would be too much. The queen, who was no longer young, did not think of any pressure at this time. She looked at the various medical conditions described in the paper word by word, lowered her eyebrows, and gently twisted the corner of the journal with her right hand. Level 19, Level 19. It is only the last step to become a legend, it is only the last step to be looked up to and respected by all mortals. That is, the royal family wants it. Ask him to do something, ask him to study something, and pay a relatively small price. This is the last chance. What can I ask him to do? What research direction can he be asked to conduct that will not go against his path and at the same time be beneficial to the development of the royal family? Increase the birth rate of babies. Or, reduce maternal, infant, and child mortality. Or, make the path for ordinary people to become professionals smoother. If that doesn't work, it would be great if each acre of land could produce more wheat, and if each acre of land could produce more forage, we could raise more sheep. Without asking him to do it himself, it would be great if he could take the lead, pay attention, organize a group of people to conduct research, and supervise the whereabouts of the funds. Which direction to choose? How to communicate with Archmage Nordmark to make him willing to take on this project? Or, should she summon her important advisors and close courtiers to discuss it first? After all, you can only make a request once. If you are rejected once, it will be difficult to ask for it later. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1902. The Queen, who was no longer young but whose authority had increased a lot, summoned her confidants and held meetings behind closed doors for 7 days. After 7 days, everyone finally reached a consensus. Planting is more important. Increase wheat yield, increase oat yield, increase pasture yield, increase potato yield. Only when the country's food production can feed more people can more people be able to fill their bellies, eat meat, practice martial arts, and become warriors. Only when the country's food production can feed more people can more children avoid starving to death. Taking a step back, if these people grow up to adulthood, they can at least develop new continents and then feed back the country. Only when grain production increases can more people leave the land and go to workshops and factories to produce more things. Food, that is the foundation of everything. Moreover, Master Nordmark is also a high-ranking priest of the natural god religion. This project, the Natural God Church, will definitely be willing to join. Well, although many elders of the natural god religion are diligently researching this direction every day, who knows if Master Nordmark has any new methods? Decided. This is it. Just because a direction has been chosen does not mean that it will be implemented immediately. The Queen and her think tank spent a few more days calculating the available budget and the experimental fields that could be allocated. 10 days later, someone was sent to Nevis to ask for a meeting with the Archmage Nordmark. What? Not here. The visitor was immediately dumbfounded. In order to rush on the road, he did not take a leisurely boat ride, but directly rode the family's fastest horse, a dragon-scaled horse at the mid-level Warcraft level, just to save 5 days. As a result, when I arrived at the place, no one was there. So many people lined up waiting for him to see a doctor. The teacher said that those who have been queuing up here recently are not critical or serious. The person who received the visitors in Greet's place was Master Leon Carlos, the director of Oak Grove Hospital. At this time, the necromancer, who was already in his early 30s and had grown into a mature male, faced. As the royal representative of the Sky Knight, he is personable and has a firm attitude. The teacher has just advanced to level 19. He said that his research was very hard some time ago and he needs to relax his mind. Therefore, he temporarily left Nevis and went on a trip. Royal Representative. Can I ask where the Archmage went? Sorry, we don't know this. We have something important to do. Can you please help us get in touch? This. The royal representative truly felt that his attitude was very sincere and his identity was also high enough. We should get a satisfactory result. However, during this period of time, Leon Carlos had become very familiar with dealing with people from all walks of life. Moreover, Oak Grove Hospital's standards for urgent matters are different from those of ordinary people. This, may I ask which patient, or seriously injured patient, is in critical condition, and no one else can do anything? Is there any letter and treatment record from a high-level healer? Let me take a look first. If the situation is urgent, I will contact you as soon as possible. Contact the teacher. Well. Okay. If you want me to create a particularly urgent patient, I really can't create one. After all, you can't just kill someone just to get the person back. When Master Nordmark heard this, was he afraid that he would kill him directly? Mr. Representative could only leave the Queen's instructions and leave with regret. At the same time, the royal family was summoned and various forces were mobilized to find where the Archmage had gone to relax. At the same time, Gretel was holding Sirara's hand and walking slowly on the streets of Heartland City. It's been so long since I've been here. Oh, the changes here are really big. After he advanced to level 19, he always had the feeling that if he wanted to ascend to the legend, he could not just immerse himself in research. You have to walk here and there, meet everyone you need to see, and try not to leave any regrets. Therefore, Greet's first stop is to return to Heartland City, to the place where he opened his eyes in this world. Yes, he has indeed been here before, but so what? It has been more than 10 years. Over the past 10 years, although it cannot be said that there have been great changes, there have been enough personnel changes. One generation grows old and one generation grows up. How's Uncle Karen doing? Where's Aunt Eileen? There must be a lot more white hair. Is it all white? How many children does Brother Raymond have now? How is the development of the children? If any of them have the talent for casting spells, they must be cultivated well. And little Avril, after so many years, I heard that she got married and gave birth to a child. That little girl who had been in poor health because of her patent ductus arteriosus and who he had specially returned to her hometown for treatment is now a wife and mother. How many children has she had over the years? Is life going well? Is that man good to her? And Edward and David? When he came back last time, Edward joined the city guard. How is he doing now? Become a knight? David was sent out to be an apprentice before, but now? And the bald bishop? Gretel really wanted to take a look. Go talk to your loved ones and see how they have changed over the years. If you can help, please help. This time, the lineup he returned to was exactly the same as last time, him, Sarara, and Silver Moon Deer APA. Lowering the flying skill, he mounted the Silver Moon Deer not far from Heartland City and walked forward step by step. The Mage Tower is still the same as before, and has not been expanded. It feels very short and narrow. As for the city wall of Heartland City, it is even more crude. The road beside the city is still the same, the farmland on both sides of the road is still the same. Greet took Cyrilla's hand and walked slowly along the road. Well, the roads in this city are the only thing that has changed. From gravel and dirt roads mixed with mud, horse dung, cow dung, and pig dung, to a slightly cleaner cement road. Well, thanks to the composting project he had planned before, and the cement promotion by the council. The roads in this city are finally open. Even so, Greet and Sarara still used their little floating skills and walked forward leisurely without touching their feet. Walking along the main road into the city, he turned around and headed towards the training ground, around towards the direction where the city guard soldiers lived together, around towards the stone house he owned when he woke up in this world. Then, he saw a huge glass frame, covering his stone house inside, covering it inside, covering it inside. There is also a team of city guards guarding and patrolling the door. Gretel? Hello. I'm not dead yet. Don't act like you're protecting your former residence in advance. Even if the former residence is protected, it cannot be covered with a big glass cover. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1903. Greet circled his former home once and again. With a layer of magic mist covering his body, he would be ignored unless he bumped into someone on the other side. He took Sarah's hand and looked at it leisurely. Well, on that huge glass frame, you can still see traces of magic runes, reinforcement, automatic cleaning, anti-collision, and so on. Very good, it seems that the local mage tower also had a hand in it. By the way, there is a monument erected on the side of the main entrance of the stone house. According to the inscription, this glass cover has been erected for a year. Greet had a headache, a toothache, and even her stomach started to hurt. This is my home. It's my house. When you did this, didn't you consider that I would go home? Well, even if I go home, I won't live in this house anymore. Last time I came here, all the important things in the house were taken away. The house has been given to Uncle Karen and his family. But that's not the reason why you made this house like this. Can I blow up this house? May I? By the way, where did Uncle Karen's family move to? A lot has been demolished around here. Greet looked left and right, but there was no clue at all. I don't know whether it was to make room for the former residents or whether the salary of the city guards was really improved. In short, the surrounding houses disappeared, and even the people who lived here did not know where they went. No one walking around on the street looked familiar, and even the cheap bakery at the end of the alley that had been open for many years and was used to eating there when I was a kid was nowhere to be found. Sarah looked at him with a smile and said nothing. When he looked over for help, she whispered an idea. Look for it with magic. What magic? Divination. Unfortunately, I only know a few medical-related magics about prophecy, but he doesn't know any of the magics used to find people. Whether it's knowing a name or looking for someone in a directed way. Or rely on a drop of blood to find the owner of the blood. Or holding an item used by someone and looking for the owner of the item through the breath on it. He, Gretel half-step legend Nordmark, is partial to science and knows nothing. Besides, he didn't have any items or blood on hand. Greet had no choice but to refresh himself with spells again, trying to make himself easily ignored or forgotten. Following his memory, he walked in the direction of the city guard barracks not far away. He randomly grabbed an older guard and asked in a low voice. May I ask where Captain Cullen's family lives? Captain Cullen, the veteran looked at him suspiciously, up and down, as if he wanted to poke a hole in him. Old Karen has quit a long time ago. Where do you come from? What is your relationship with him? Why do you want to inquire about him? Greet's expression remained unchanged, and he flicked his fingers and threw another spell. The veteran's attitude immediately changed and he enthusiastically showed him the way. Old Karen, he is so great now. He already has a village and lives in a manor outside the city. His eldest son, Captain Edward, is already a knight. He lives in, look, the mansion in that direction is. I'm so depraved, even if I ask for news, I'm going to do charming human, Greet thought helplessly. But no matter what, a black cat or a white cat is a good cat if it catches mice. Greet walked in the direction guided by the veteran, and not long after, he came to a large house. Or, from the perspective of residents of a small city like Heartland City, it is something that can be regarded as a big house, a two-story building surrounded by a wall. He let go of his mental power and did not feel Uncle Karen's presence, and asked about the location of the manor from the servant of the mansion. After wandering all the way, it was only when dusk was approaching that we found the location of the manor. The area of the manor is not large, only about 200 to 300 acres. Well, this is the data provided by the enthusiastic servant of the big house. Not long after Greet walked along the field, he saw the mansion standing on the edge of the woods. A tall and spacious stone house. It is estimated that there is a hall that can accommodate at least 30 or 40 people for dinner, more than 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that can cater for so many people, and a huge barn. At this time, the smoke from the kitchen was curling up, and before it stopped, the hot aroma was already flowing into the hall. The tenant farmers and farm hands who were off work carried their tools and poured into the hall chatting and laughing, waiting for the meal. On the rammed earth platform at the end of the hall, an old couple looked down peacefully, their wrinkled faces full of satisfaction. Greet stood in the corner of the hall, looking quietly at the earthen platform. Uncle Cullen was old, he thought, visibly older than he had been the last time he'd been here. If the last time he returned to his hometown, Uncle Karen was still a warrior in his prime, with a strong body that could carry a mountain, then now Uncle Karen has become a complete warrior. Old man. My hair is graying, my waist is stooped, my muscles are flabby, and there are age spots on my face. The cook brought the meat, and when Uncle Karen picked up the knife to cut it, his movements obviously slowed down, and his force was not even stable. After all, he had not crossed the threshold between ordinary warriors and knights. If the body has not undergone qualitative changes and has not been nourished, it is impossible to retain youth. Today, just getting older. Time has already favored him. As for Aunt Eileen, Greet had to work hard to clench his hands to control his emotions. Aunt Eileen's hair was completely white. She squinted her eyes, cut the bread on the plate bit by bit, soaked it in the soup, and then carefully put it into her mouth to chew. From her trembling hands, the age spots on her hands and face, and the subconscious movement of bending closer when cutting food, Greet can know. Her health was already very bad. Her eyes were blurry and she had lost many teeth. In addition, there must have been many various ailments that were tormenting her. Aunt Eileen is not a fighter, and her physical fitness is much worse than Uncle Karen. Over the long years, she has endured too much hard work. Cough, 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 cough. While thinking about it, Aunt Eileen choked for some reason, coughed hard, and the back of her hand that was pressed on the table had a few veins. Uncle Karen put down the spoon in his hand and patted her back carefully, but he couldn't stop her coughing. After a moment, a little girl ran up to the far end of the long table, next to the old woman, and gently kissed her. She rubbed her chest. That girl's hair color, eye color, face shape, except for not being thin and pale, that girl was exactly the same as the little Avril in her memory. Gretel couldn't bear it any longer. He removed the spell that obscured his figure and strode forward. Aunt Eileen, Uncle Karen. Thanks at 0 Crazy Stone 0 for tipping 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to at for the 500 starting coins. Thanks to at Vixnake for the 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1904. On the rammed earth platform, the two old men suddenly stood up in shock. With the agility that had disappeared for many years, Uncle Karen pressed the table and stood up suddenly. The heavy long table was shaken twice by him, and the plates and dishes on the table clinked loudly. Aunt Eileen, on the other hand, forgot about coughing for a while. She opened her hazy eyes and looked tremblingly in Gretel's direction. Unfortunately, No matter how hard I looked, I could only see two blurry figures. I couldn't even see the man and woman clearly. Fortunately, she is not deaf yet, and she can vaguely hear the familiar voices calling her, some of which sound like the voices of the children she cares about. Little Greet. Beside her, her husband, who had been with her for many years, was panting. The sound made her inexplicably worried that her husband would be unable to breathe and fall over. "Aunt Eileen, it's me." The clear, familiar voice answered. Passing through the noisy hall and the noisy crowd, a familiar child between a teenager and a young man strode over, and his gentle hands supported her. "Aunt Eileen, sit down, sit down." "Yes, I'm back. Don't worry, I won't leave or disappear suddenly." Greet stood next to the old woman and comforted her repeatedly. Auntie's aging fingers grasped him hard, but they could no longer dig into the back of his hand, nor could they cause him any pain. The only thing that gave Greet some comfort was that the old man's palms and fingers were no longer as dry and cracked as in her memory. It seemed that in the past few years, she had done less work and was less likely to wash clothes with cold water herself. "Little Gretel, it's really little Gretel." After a while, Aunt Eileen finally recovered from her excitement. "Quickly wave your hand, ask someone to bring the seats, dishes, and food again. Look at me, I forgot to let you sit down to eat. You must be hungry after coming all the way here, right? And this girl." Her dim eyes looked at Cyrilla, and saw that brilliant silver hair and beautiful face, and more joy emerged in every wrinkle. "That's the one who came with you last time, right? Her name is Cyrilla. She's called Cyrilla, right? Come on, sit down quickly, there's nothing good to eat in the countryside, don't dislike it." Cyrilla stood quietly next to Gretel with a smile on her face, letting Aunt Eileen nag while placing food in front of her. The way this old woman cares about Gretel and even herself is really very comforting. After a while of noise, Gretel quickly sat down next to Aunt Eileen, eating and answering Aunt Eileen's endless questions. The tenant farmers, hired workers, and even the children and grandchildren accompanying Captain Cullen in the hall were whispering to each other and kept whispering. "Little Gretel? Is that little Greet? Mage Gret Nordmark? It is said that that one has now become an 18th level archmage. The villagers and tenants here do not know how powerful the 18th level archmage is. They only know that the strongest one in the area is only level 9. An 18th level archmage is probably a being that is only slightly weaker than a god, right? But one thing they knew was that since Master Nordmark returned to Nevis, the city owner had united with the Mage Tower to protect his residents. Everyone in Heartland City has seen that house and that monument. Master Karen also received special preferential treatment from the city lord because of his relationship with Master Nordmark. Decades ago, after that man came back for the first time, Lord Karen was given this manor, and Lord Edward and Lord Raymond also received resources and successfully became knights. "It's him. Is he back? Why do you look so young, is it really him? And the girl next to me, we were here together last time. Why does she look like she's only a teenager?" Gretel completely turned a deaf ear to these discussions and did not listen carefully to a word. With a smile on his face, he stretched out his hand gently, and small bunches of berries fell out of thin air into the bowls of Aunt Eileen and Uncle Karen. "Here, eat some of this. Don't be anxious, eat slowly, it's good for your body. He can have as much monster meat, magic plant fruits, and alchemy potions as he wants, and whatever grade he wants. But why can't we feed it directly to the elderly? The two old men are both old, so if they are weak and need not be replenished, something will happen immediately if they eat the meat of high-level magic beasts. On the other hand, the berries produced by the magic berry technique have a mild texture and replenish vitality. It is beneficial for the elderly and young children to eat them. Take care of yourself first. After you take good care of yourself, you can use many treatments. Is this, Is this expensive? Aunt Eileen hesitated, looking at Gretel and then at her little granddaughter who was rubbing her chest just a few seats away. Greet turned back and smiled, then summoned a bunch of berries and gently pushed them to the little girl. It's nothing. It's a first-level magic. I will use it before I leave Heartland City for the first time. You can eat as much as you want. Don't keep this for a long time. There are still children here. The two old men began to eat hesitantly. The sweet divine berries melt in your mouth, and the juice is luscious and refreshing. With a smile on her face, Gretel ate the bread and vegetable soup common in farmers' homes, and carefully observed the two old people. Aunt Eileen has lost a lot of weight. The skin on the hands and face is so loose that it almost sticks to the bones. This is not just a matter of getting old and losing weight. Old people are too thin and have muscle atrophy, which makes them prone to falls and fractures. It is also easy for them to not have enough reserves when a serious illness strikes, making them unable to withstand it. She doesn't look very good. Looking at the few teeth left in her mouth, you can probably imagine that she has difficulty chewing food, which reduces her intake and leads to malnutrition. Even if the conditions at home have improved and there is white bread on the table instead of black bread mixed with sawdust and stones, it still cannot change the problem of malnutrition. My eyes were cloudy, probably a cataract could not escape, but it was not to the point of complete loss of vision. As for other diseases, they should be checked slowly. And Uncle Karen's physique is much stronger than Aunt Eileen, but he also suffered several injuries when he was young. Especially when he just traveled through time, he managed to treat a ruptured liver injury. He barely managed to heal the injury, but he couldn't make up for the lost energy. I have to stay here for a while and give them a good adjustment. Little Greet, how long will you stay here? It seemed like a long time, and it seemed like only a short while later, the food on the table was cleared. The old woman stood up tremblingly, still staring at Gretel. I'm going to stay for a while, Aunt Eileen. Don't be busy. I brought a house back, and the mage has a mage mansion for you to live in. Greet quickly went up to help her. Step by step, he helped her back to the living room and carefully helped her sit down. Spread your palms and gently cover her eyes. Aunt Eileen, close your eyes. Warm magical aura seeped out from his palms. This time he advanced, and the organ regeneration technique he had just comprehended was released quietly. The cells engulfed themselves and metabolized rapidly. When the palm was removed, the old woman's dim eyes had become clear. Little Greet, I can see you clearly. I can see you clearly. Little Gretel, you have grown so much this time when you come back. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1905. Uncle Karen, high blood pressure, high blood lipids, a little sclerosis of the blood vessels, and a little coronary artery stenosis. Cholecystitis, fatty liver, these are not difficult and can be cured. After a little exposure, Gretel was able to convince Uncle Karen and Aunt Eileen to give them a thorough examination. Uncle Karen's main problem is that after retirement, his physical activity has been greatly reduced, but he still eats so much. So fat accumulates, and the waistline increases. Well, Greet has not yet thought of a good solution to the problem of fat, especially visceral fat. Simple and crude liposuction can deal with epidermal fat, but it is not easy to deal with visceral fat in this way. Need to think about it again, do some research, or send a project to researchers in the hospital. However, he has solved these problems such as high blood pressure, arteriosclerosis, and coronary stenosis to the extreme. You can get it done by brushing up the healing skills once, there is no difficulty at all. However, Aunt Eileen's physical condition made Greet frown. Hypotension, hypoglycemia, mild anemia, insufficient ejection function of the heart, pulmonary nodules, and a series of large and small problems. If these diseases are not too difficult to treat, then, considering other problems of the elderly, missing teeth, long-term malnutrition, muscle atrophy, osteoporosis, Gretel was determined to cure the old man in one go. However, the phagocytosis and regeneration of cells must be supported by the body's own strength. There must be enough protein and enough materials to support the rapid division and growth of cells. The liver and kidneys must also have enough ability to metabolize the waste products produced by cellular phagocytosis. The elderly have been malnourished for a long time and do not have much reserves in their bodies. It is conceivable that the working ability of the organs has also dropped to a very low level. It's just a matter of treating the eyes. After all, the eyes only have a small size and will not cause too much burden on the body. However, for comprehensive treatment. Little Greet, how are you? Seeing that he didn't speak for a long time, Captain Cullen frowned and nervously grabbed his wife's hand. Instead, Aunt Eileen smiled slightly, patted the back of her husband's hand, and comforted Greet slowly. Little Gretel, don't be too embarrassed. I'm just old. When people get old, there will always be problems of one kind or another. Don't think about forcing yourself to get over it. Ah, it's not that serious. Greet came back to his senses and gave the old woman a big smile. Aunt Eileen, you have some minor problems, not too big. I'm just wondering where to start. In fact, the most troublesome thing is malnutrition. As long as the nutrition is restored and the follow-up care is slowly taken care of, you can always recover a little bit. For young mages or young warriors, an alchemy potion can solve many problems. However, it is difficult for elderly ordinary people to withstand the power of alchemical potions. Develop enteral nutrition? This difficulty is relatively high, but it is not particularly difficult. The Parliament has many ready-made methods that can be used for reference. For example, alchemy potions, high-energy foods, potions used in clone technique. Or, get a grinder and grind the food into kilo for easier intake. This is relatively easy. You don't even need a grinder. You just need to hire a chef to chop the food finely. As long as you have a recipe and calculate the nutritional ratio. However, long-term consumption of food crushed by a grinder, or food cut into pieces and cooked into kilo-like form, will greatly affect the appetite of the elderly and even affect the dignity of the elderly. If possible, don't do it. Or, directly solve the dental problem so that Aunt Eileen can regain her ability to chew. So, what about dentures? Are Aunt Eileen's remaining teeth strong enough to hold dentures in place? Greet shook his head secretly, not optimistic about it. Or, getting dental implants? It is not difficult to perform surgery, drill holes, and install dental implants. At worst, use mithril to make a base that is driven into the alveolar bone, which should not cause rejection reactions. However, Aunt Eileen is old and has osteoporosis. Is her alveolar bone strong enough to support the installation of dental implants? Another option is to directly induce the growth of teeth. After human permanent teeth fall out, theoretically no new teeth will grow. Can normal treatment be used to induce pregnancy? If not, can it be done using limb regeneration or similar spells? I feel like I need to go back and check the information. Gretel sighed softly and held Aunt Eileen's hand more affectionately. He warmed his aunt's hand with the warmth of his palm, softened his voice and said slowly. Auntie, do you and Uncle Karen want to accompany me to Nevis to stay for a while? Your body needs to be recuperated slowly. In Nevis, I will be watching and the healers from the Nature Order will be with you. I can recover. This. Aunt Eileen hesitated. Under the candlelight, she looked around the living room, looking at Gretel who was looking at her expectantly, at her silent wife beside her, and at her little granddaughter who was so sleepy that she started to doze off, and finally shook her head firmly. Little Gretel, forget it. Auntie is just old, and people always get older. I am here, and I can also help Edward, David, and the others with their children. Little Avril is about to give birth. Again, again. Greet's heart sank, and her eyes grew hot. In his previous life, his mother was like this too, always putting him first and her own needs behind. Children have to study, children have to work, children have to pursue promotions, children are very tired after a busy day, children don't earn much, and they have to save money to buy a house and get married. If you can save a little, just save a little. Therefore, even if you can buy clothes, you must sew and mend them yourself. Sweaters and underwear are full of patches. Although you can use a sweeping robot or a housekeeper to solve household chores, you must scrub and wash yourself. You are so tired that you can't straighten your waist. Obviously there is no shortage of money anymore, so you must leave the best food to your children. When the children are not around, you can just cook something to satisfy your hunger. And the mother's body weakened due to day after day of frugality and hard work, until she was struck down by a serious illness. "Aunt Eileen, don't worry about this," he tried to persuade. "Otherwise, I ask the Mage Tower to hire a group of servants to take care of the children for you. Or call an airship to take everyone there. Your body really needs to be recuperated. This can't be done in a day or two. Son." Despite his repeated persuasion and plan after plan, Aunt Eileen just smiled and shook her head. Gretel had no choice but to grit his teeth and become cruel. "Then I will stay here and not leave. When will you be well nursed back to health, I will leave again."